My name is Kiran Darisi. I'm the co-founder and CTO at Atomicwork. Previously part of founding team of Freshworks. At Atomicwork, we are building an AI-native ITSM solution where organizations uses Atomicwork to actually support their employees. Like it can give you an instant support there, right? Uh, in my talk, I'm going to talk about like a practical decisions you can take back and try to deploy in your startups if you're building AI for enterprises, or if you're actually choosing an AI solution for the enterprises, right? With that, let me start the talk. Right, so let me take a couple of data points. The first one, this report is from Microsoft, where it actually depicts how India uses a generative AI at workplaces, right? If you see this number in particular, which is like 90% of the power users uses generative AI daily in their work lives, right? Which is like AI is currently working, right? And there is no reason that you shouldn't be using generative AI in your workplace. So before I begin, I just wanted to quickly check how many of you actually deployed AI in production, right? So any hands? Yeah, I see quite a few hands, right? And this is another data point where you should embrace generative AI in enterprises. So this is the cost of GPT-4 models for the last 6 months, where there is a good 90% reduction in number of tokens generated, which is like million tokens generated dollar amount, right? Which is like reduced almost 90% over the last 6 months, right? So AI works, right? So now what? What you need to do actually to embrace it in the enterprises. So let's talk about some use cases, right? So there are very mundane use cases where it can be automated very easily. That is like very left side of your spectrum. And when you take predictive analysis or like an NLP will be the hardest, right? So where you get your 95% of the use case right in the first few hours, right? But the next 5% is the toughest to crack, so that it takes a lot of your effort to get it. So the more complex is the use case, the tolerance for the failure also should be self-managed, right? And this requires robust testing as well as continuous refinement as you go. And also, it's not selecting the right use case, right, or the right technology for your use case to solve it, but it also should align to your business goals when you deploy, as well as it should be integrated with your existing systems, which is already there in your enterprise, and it should be scalable, because you will actually start with one team, but eventually you will actually spread across your entire organization, right? And fourth, it should be ethical, because the AI will be used to take critical decisions in an organization, which means that it should be always accurate and unbiased. It shouldn't actually give like inaccurate results whenever you want to actually do it. And also, it should ensure compliance and security, right? These are like multiple data points you can actually think of when you wanted to deploy AI in enterprises, right? So at Atomicwork, we have the first-hand experience where we see the use cases when you're deploying AI. One of the use case when you use AI for IT service management, your answer should be accurate, and you need to understand vast amounts of data. And also, you should know the customer or the user intent when they actually typed in the query, right? So these are the main things. For that, we follow 9 guardrails to actually guide us our journey when deploying the AI systems, right? So primarily, they are on how reliable the AI system is, and how resilient it is, and how responsible it is, right? Let me break down these things for you so that it can actually tell you what exactly I mean, right? Before starting this, As I told you, ours is an ITSM solution, which is like an internal help desk, where you have different personas, right? So you have an admin, a support agent, and you have an employee. I will just take an example of a support agent, IT support agent, and an employee who is actually asking questions to the AI, so that how it actually answers, right? So when I mean it's actually like, it needs to be very transparent, right? So you have this question when you actually talk to the AI, right? You don't know what AI is giving you, or you always think AI is black box, right? For that, we need a lot of transparency to actually define what it needs to be there. When I mean transparency, when an user is asking to the system, it needs to know whether he is actually talking to an AI or he's talking to an human, right? This is Atomicwork product, where we clearly display, this is a disclaimer, saying that it is generated by AI, right? So there is no confusion for the end user whether they are talking to an AI system or a human, right? And we need to create trust to the user, where he needs to know that his data is safe with us, right? For Atomicwork, all the PII is masked for every interaction you actually do with AI, right? So this is not Figma generated. This is like real screenshots of our product, right? So we use Microsoft Presidio to actually detect the PII information when you actually interact, and we don't actually store any of it. And explainability, it's like when you are actually deploying the AI system into your organization, you connect to multiple different data sources. When you ask a question, it gives an answer. The user needs to know where exactly it came from, right? It just can't just appear without anything. And so we connect to multiple data sources like Notion, SharePoint, or OneDrive, et cetera. So when there is a question particularly, we tell them, it's OK, this particular thing came from this SharePoint site. So that the user trusts, it just doesn't actually Google search, or it came from his pre-training. It actually came from the organization knowledge, right? As I told you, ours is an internal help desk, which is like an ticketing system, right? So where we smart route our requests between agents. So when I assign a ticket to an agent, it should know that it's actually give you an explanation why it has been assigned. In this case, it is telling you that it's actually like you already solved this kind of a request in your previous request, you solved it. So that's why you actually gave this. And on the accountability, so when you design the workflows on AI, you can't go replace the content generated by the real user. You need to ask the permission of the user to replace it or not. For example, this is particular reply where an agent is sending to an employee, where AI suggested this might be a right answer. So agent can decide whether to use it, not to use it, but it's all depends on the agent's discretion. You don't need to actually just replace it without the, the agent doesn't know, right? So it just replaces. And next comes the resilient part, right? So where you operate with security so that you won't go out of the boundaries. The first foremost is the model security. Let's say you are actually, this is the Open Web Application AI Security Guide. So it tells you like which model to use when, right? Let's say you want to actually just do a trial and error in some use cases. You can just use a public access model, right? You don't need to actually deploy any licensed model. Let's say your use case is being defined and you wanted to deploy it in your internal workflows. Then use a licensed model, which is like from an Azure OpenAI or a Bedrock, et cetera, right? And let's say if you actually want to deploy a model to your end user, it depends on your domain, right? It can be an IT domain, HR domain, pharmacy domain, finance domain. So there are multiple pre-trained models where you can able to deploy it. For example, there is a model called Gorilla LLM, which actually been trained on enterprise APIs. So where it knows exactly how to generate an API signature for any SaaS API which is outside, right? Then once you actually have this confidence of doing a domain-specific model, you can actually fine-tune it with your proprietary data. But your custom model should be at the very large spectrum because it requires a lot of investment for you to actually deploy it, maintain it, and manage it, right? And next comes the prompt security, right? As an AI system, you need to know exactly what is coming inside to your system. And you should be able to detect it, whether there is a malicious attack on your system, right? So prompt injection is the, that's the easiest attack can actually go wrong, right? So if you see here, so this Guardrails just went for a toss, right? So it is not intended to do, but it actually went ahead and did it. So in web applications, right, so you have VAPs and pentest or VAPT. The same thing should happen to your chat interfaces as well, right? Basically, you need to keep doing a pen test on your chat interfaces for any malicious attacks. So we use site labs to actually continuously do pen test on our chat interface. This is how we perform. I think so we do very well here. And the same thing, your system prompt is very confidential. You can't reveal it because you have a lot of proprietary information where you actually coded into your system prompt, right? So in this case, if somebody is asking for a system prompt, we carefully redirecting him to an human agent rather than revealing anything in the system prompt, right? So this is, again, something where you can able to nudge the user, saying that, let's say somebody says, this is my credit card. You can nudge the user, you actually spelled out your credit card. You like to actually recheck it and come back. Still, we are assuring the user that we are not actually taking any of this information you failed. It's not even what data the user types in. The PA can actually also live in the data sources you already connected it. So even there, you should make sure when you give an answer that you shouldn't give from the data source, that it's actually like the PA information which is already contained. So as you take care of what comes inside the system, you need to take care of what goes outside the system, right? So even you need to have an output guardrail so that your responses are like well guarded, right? So for example, you need to fact check every answer you give it to the end user. For example, let's say you want to actually think about ACLs, right? So let's say you connected to SharePoint site. If that particular information, it shouldn't be given to that particular user, you should say it is not actually do it. I think so I have 30 more seconds. I'll quickly do. So these are the last three when you say it is responsible, so that which is like it's unbiased. So you should check the facts before you send that particular thing, particular answer to the end user, which is basically you should use advanced RAG so that every answer you generate, it is being fact-checked and given to the user. And you should define the boundaries where how that assistant can actually answer, can't answer. It's like you can say politics and religion shouldn't be answered, etc. And it should be continuously monitored. This is our admin settings where we cluster all our questions for the admins so that they can see what employees ask, so that they can continuously refine and they can able to take it to the person. So that is some resources I used to actually prepare this talk. Thanks for it, and I'll be there if you want any questions. Thank you.